everyone, welcome to the Nevada Women Business Center and Nevada Business Opportunity Fund webinar on being ready for business funding. This is Leanna Jenkins, the director of the Nevada Women's Business Center and Nevada Business Opportunity Fund. My name is Rob Sealander. I am the business development officer here. So I'm actually the person that you call, or Leanna, when you contact us for lending or asking about some of the requirements or whatever. So today we're just going to talk about some very high level things that you can do, things you need to know, maybe questions you need to ask, so that when you come and have the conversation with us, you are more prepared to actually, and set up to actually get that funding approved. So I'm going to toss it over to you for whatever questions.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we always suggest that people do is before you even start applying for a loan, have an idea what your credit looks like. I think that that's extremely important. And even if someone doesn't know their exact score, their credit score, their FICO score, you have an idea of whether or not you've been paying your bills on time.
Exactly.
If you haven't been paying your bills on time.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things I'd like to caution everyone who's listening, because I just had a client call me today who she knew that she had some old things on her credit that needed to get taken care of. So instead of calling me first, she went, I'll just pay them and get them taken care of, which sounds like a wonderful thing to do, but they were old and they weren't affecting her score anymore. So now she paid them off and her score dropped between 40 and 50 points.
Wow.
So
Because it becomes current again, right?
because now it becomes current. So, you know, I mean, she kind of shot herself in the foot that way.
Right.
There are other ways that it could have been done differently. So, you know, before you start paying things off that are old on your credit, please give us a call. We can kind of help you navigate those waters and see what needs to be done. Sometimes it can just be, this is something that needs to be done at the closing or before closing.
Right.
But don't do it before the credit is pulled, because then you're going to drop your score and that could potentially raise your interest rate.
Right.
So we don't want to put people in that position.
And another reason why you want to know what your credit score is because we, for example, we have different options. So if you've got a minimum FICO score of, let's say, 600 or 650, for a microloan, which is a loan under 50, you can actually go on more of a fast track to get that loan approved with minimum documentation, and that helps you get funded faster. So you can still get the funding if your credit score is below that, but it can be fast tracked. But also you're going to be asked why your credit score is lower than, let's say, especially if it's below 600, we're going to want to know what's on it. And there's a difference between a few late payments here and there, or maybe you had a couple of bad months where everything was late but it's all cleaned up, and 10 credit cards, 9 of which are in collections and the other one which is about to be in collections. There's a big difference between those two
Absolutely.
things on somebody's credit report. So
Absolutely. And as an alternative lender, we don't get frightened away when we see people who've had some credit blemishes.
Yes.
That does not scare us. I know if you go to a traditional bank, sometimes within their guidelines, they're just not able to help someone, say, who's had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure.
Right.
Ever. Not that it's off your credit now and now we can help you. They can never do it.
Well, they look more at basically there's a number, if it's above that they say yes, if it's between two numbers
Exactly.
they say maybe.
So they kind of work a little bit more within a box, where we kind of step outside the box.
Right.
That's where we excel at. So don't be afraid if you've had some credit blemishes to talk to us. We're used to it. We can, again, help guide and navigate what you're doing, and that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And another thing that you really want to understand is your income and debt situation. It can be great that maybe you're making $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But what we're going to look at is not only how much money you make, but how much money is actually spent in a month. So if somebody's making $5,000 a month and their bills are, let's say, $2,000 a month, they really have a 40% debt to income ratio, and we like things to be below 50%.
Right.
Where if you're making $5,000 a month and all your monthly bills are $4,000 a month, you're probably not going to get the loan, because now you're at an 80%
Right.
debt to income ratio, because really all it's going to take is a flat tire or a broken arm, and all of a sudden
and when it comes
there's
to
no
the
money.
difference of, are you going to pay your loan back or are you going to put food on the table?
Right.
We expect you to eat. Are you-
as would we.
Are you gonna keep a roof over your head? Are you gonna pay the loan payment?
Absolutely.
You're gonna keep a roof over your head. I
Right.
mean, and we know that that's what people are gonna do. We don't expect them to go homeless because they've taken this loan out. And that's why we have certain thresholds that we don't go below as far as debt to income, because we don't ever want you to get a loan and be in a worse shape financially because you got it.
Right.
And sometimes it seems like it can be the quick fix, but it doesn't always work that way.
Well, and if you're in a loan situation where you have to put up collateral and then you can't pay the loan, not only is your credit going to get hit and you can't pay the loan, but that could
But now
cost
we're
you your
gonna
car, that could
right.
cost you your house, that could cost whatever you put up for collateral, or if you bring in a guarantor, so somebody to co-sign for you, all of a sudden those processes kick into place, and that just makes a bad situation so much worse. Because
Absolutely.
we don't want your house, we don't
No,
want
we
your
don't.
car, we don't want doing that at all. We're actually here to stimulate the economy, help people create jobs,
You know,
and help things just get even better than they are.
interestingly enough, we had a client in today who signed on his loan papers and got his loan approved today. And I was talking to him over the weekend.
Oh, that's right.
And I had turned him down for a loan a little over 3 years ago. And when I saw him over the weekend, he said, I was so frustrated when you turned me down, and I'm so grateful now that you did. He said, I absolutely was not in a position and ready to be able to take out the funding at the time. He said, and
Right.
I'm in such a better place now. Now it's going to be successful. And again, we're not here to try to kill dreams and tell people
Mhm.
no, but sometimes the no is not right now.
Right.
It doesn't mean no forever, but it just means right now, these are some things that you need to work on in order to get that a yes. Because we want the loan to help you grow your business so that you can be more successful
Well, it's really-
and you can generate additional revenues.
Well, it's really about setting people up for success instead of failure.
Absolutely.
Because setting people up for failure, we all fail
Absolutely. And
at the end of the day.
and as you said, we don't want someone's car, we don't want someone's
Right.
house. We're not, I mean, that's not what we do.
That's not who we are at all.
That's not what we want. So we want you to succeed. When you succeed, we succeed.
Right.
You know, so.
And we've talked a little bit about collateral, and this is why it's really important. Don't wait until the last minute to have conversations with your lender, whether it's us, whether it's a relative you're going to be borrowing from.
Mhm.
Know what's going to be required, because for some loans, we can go up to $50,000 without collateral. However, you need a certain FICO score, you need a certain income level. So again, you need to be below that 50% debt to income ratio. And if there's collateral, you need to know what's going to be required. So, if you're calling for a loan, let's say for $150,000, there's no way you're going to get that loan without collateral. There
Right.
just isn't.
Right.
So you really need to know that. And also for a lot of our loans, especially when you get above 50, you're going to have to show your own equity injection. So for example, let's say it's going to cost you $100,000 to open up your business for everything. We're going to want to see that you have 25,000 of that coming from your own money, not another loan, not
Right.
on your credit cards, but that you actually have either you've spent that already into the business, or you have that sitting in the bank ready to be spent, and then you fund the other 75,000. So nobody's going to fund 100% of your business loan, of your business
and if
project.
they do, honestly, they're probably a predatory lender who your interest rate is going to be astronomical.
Right, because in fact, we get that quite a bit, because our interest rates go between 9 and 18%. And that might seem like a lot, but if you were to put that same amount on a credit card, you're looking at interest rates in the 20s. And if you go to some of the places out there, like, what is it?
Like a payday lender
like,
or a
like
title
Rapid,
loan.
like, what is it, Rapid Cash?
Rapid Cash.
It's big letters on their windows, 87% interest.
And they're advertising that because
Yes.
that's so good to them.
87%, which means if you take out a loan of $10,000 and you have that loan for a whole year, you're going to be paying $8,700 in interest, almost the entire loan amount.
It's crazy.
It
It's
is.
just
So-
just crazy.
So please don't do that, because it just those
Exactly.
tend to go very, very wrong, because usually those payments come out every single day, direct deposit. We had a client, they took out a $90,000 loan and they were paying, what was that, $600 a day?
$659 a day.
$13,000 a month. I don't know very many small businesses that can handle $13,000 a month for one payment.
Exactly.
Certainly not when that loan, we refinanced them, it was
Exactly.
what,
And-
1,200, 1,300?
Right, and so when you're taking out daily withdrawals out of your bank account,
Mhm.
that means if you have a good day, they're taking money
Yep.
out. If you've had a bad day and didn't make a sale that
Right.
day, they're still taking the money out. It doesn't matter.
And when they went to refinance, they were told, sorry, it's not our problem.
Right.
You agreed to this.
Right,
So we actually, when clients have come to us, let's say, something happens, and maybe they do have a bad 3 or 4 months, we have the capacity to actually work with the business to,
exactly.
because everybody goes through a bad few months. And even here downtown, sometimes roads get ripped up or completely closed off
Absolutely.
for, 3 or 4 days or a week or two while they're filming a movie. The business isn't going to do what they would have normally have done.
Exactly,
We can
and
arrange
exactly
for that.
what you're saying. That's something that when you're applying for a loan, you want to be sure to tell your lender that. You want to be sure to say, yes, my income went down in 2016 because they had the street out, torn up in front of my
Right.
business for 3 months. And so it really cut down in the summer months
Right.
on my business.
Well, if you look
and-
here at Main
and-
Street in Vegas,
right.
that's been
And so-
under major construction for the last 6 months.
Exactly. So people will understand, underwriters will understand, but be sure that you address it. Don't wait for someone just to question you about
Right.
it, because sometimes, and I want to say that in a perfect world it never happens, but we don't live in that perfect world. Sometimes the questions aren't asked, and
Right.
and then that's when decline letters are sent, because they just went, oh, look at, their business is declining. So that's where you want to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
One thing I like that we can do at our organization is when you were talking about debt to income ratio
Mhm.
and about how we have certain thresholds. If you don't yourself have the income, we have the ability to allow you to put a guarantor on
Right.
your loan. So, and this does not have to be an owner guarantor. So,
Which is great because they can help you out in your loan, but not get in the way of your day-to-day running your business.
absolutely. So, I always say if you have a mother, father, sister, brother,
Yep.
grandparent, someone who's willing to help, and they don't have to be an owner in the business, that's a nice way to be able to
That really
get,
is.
to help with your debt to income if you can have somebody guarantee the loan along
Absolutely.
with you.
So another thing that you can do to be ready is know what you need and know what you need it for. Because with personal lending, if you go and you're going to take out a personal loan or you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy a car, it's really about how much do I qualify for. So you go to the bank or whatever, they run the numbers, and they say, okay, you can buy, a $40,000 car or a $200,000 home, and you go out and you buy within that range. With business lending, it's really about knowing what you need. So I need 5 computers, I need a printer, I need, to paint the inside of my business, I need these things. Here's what it's going to cost. Then you come to us, and we work together to figure out, okay, how close can we get to that number? What are you going to need for us to get to that number? So credit, cash flow, collateral, those kind of things we've already talked about. And that's how the conversation happens. We can't come in and say, well, we could approve you up to 100,000. Now go figure out what you need. It's really a situation of you need to know what that's going to be used for.
Absolutely.
And that's with everybody. Nobody's going to do a business loan based on how much do you qualify for.
Exactly. It's not like when you buy a house. A lot of times people say, well, they told me when I was going to buy a house, I could buy a house up to $200,000 or $250,000. It doesn't work that way with a business loan. It's like apples and oranges.
Well, and part of that too is when you buy a house, you've got collateral built into it. If you don't make the payment, the bank takes the house.
Correct.
The same thing with the car. But when there's a business loan and we're paying for advertising, well, we can't take the advertising back,
Right.
and we can't take, your salaries back. So it becomes a question of, where's that going to be used and how is that going to be secured in the event it needs to be secured.
Exactly. And that's one of the things through the Women's Business Center here, that we are able to work with you on your financial projections.
Yes.
We are able to sit there and work with you on what your capital needs are for your business. And a lot of times, we'll look at people and their ideas are a little bit too grand. Maybe you need to do it in
Yes.
stages. So maybe you don't need $100,000, maybe $30,000 will work, and then get another
Right.
loan for 30 and then another loan for 40 as the business continues to increase. And every now and then we'll have people come to us and they'll say, oh, I think, if I could get 20, and we look at it and say, you know what? 20 really isn't gonna do this for you
Mhm.
because you haven't included these other debts, or, these other
Right.
bills, and maybe you really need 30 or 35,000.
Right.
And so we've had that conversation as well. So that's why it's really great to be able to use us as your mentors as well, because we're not just order takers. We're not
Right.
just gonna take whatever you tell us and we're just gonna run with that. We're gonna talk to you, we're gonna have that conversation. And that's why it's so important for you to know your numbers and have that information ready.
Yep, and this may sound really weird coming from a lender, but I personally want to get you the lowest amount of funding that you need. I'm
Absolutely,
not
we don't want
looking
you
to
to be
hook-
in debt in
Right,
your
I
business.
don't want to hook somebody up with $50,000 worth of debt if they really only need 40. Go with
Right.
40. Go with 10.
Right.
Go with what you need, because you can always add more if you need to.
Right, you can always get a second loan,
But
but yeah,
you don't want to be on the hook for a payment of a $70,000 loan when really you could have gotten away with 40 or 50. And a lot of times that comes down to people want the big screen TVs in their barbershops or restaurants or retail places, and they want the great big computer screens, and they want all this really cool stuff, and those things are really awesome. But you don't necessarily need those things to start your business. Those things can be added 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road. In fact, and then also know what your timing is for the money, because we had a client come last summer. He needed $200,000, and in talking to him, that was what he needed over the course of 2 years. So we were
Right.
able to go in and say, okay, let's start. What do you need right now? I said, well, right now I just need 20, but in 4 months I'm going to probably need another 30, and then maybe 3 months after that.
right,
And that's exactly how we set it up. So his first payments were based on a $20,000 loan, not a $200,000 loan.
right.
And there's a difference between maybe a $500 a month payment and a
And a
$3,000 a month payment. There's a
Right.
huge difference, especially as a brand new business.
Right, exactly.
When there's no revenue coming in, you don't want the big payments. And another thing that you need to know too is, can your particular business or project be funded? For example, for us and for any lender, we can't fund things that are not federally legal, which unfortunately means that while it's a booming business, anything marijuana related is completely out of the question for us.
Right.
Not because we don't want to do it, legally we can't do it.
Right, exactly.
You also want to know, even for the project, for example, for tenant improvements, where people go in and they do, they make the restaurant theirs or they
Right.
make the barbershop theirs. We can't fund 100% of that.
No,
There has to be something from the borrower there,
right.
because a lot of those run way over budget. They run overtime.
Well, but
and-
not only that, but if we're funding tenant improvements as a general rule, you're not gonna be able to use that for collateral.
Right.
I can't go collect on a wall that was built.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Or the plumbing system that was
Exactly,
revamped.
but yet it's very important for you to have those things and necessary for you
Right.
to have them. But that's where you need some skin in the game, and a lot of your equity investment can go towards part of that.
Yes.
But if you have a barber shop and you have blow dryers and clippers and all of
Yeah.
those things, that's something tangible that we can take and
That's a lot
and
of scissors,
collect.
though.
Yeah, a lot of scissors for that.
So another thing too is you want to know what the requirements are going to be. So for example, we can't fund real estate if you're going to buy a plot of land and either tear something down and build it up or build it up from scratch.
Right.
There are other lenders that can. We can do the equipment and things like that. However, if you're going to buy, let's say, an office building, or you're going to buy a location, you can do that. We can fund that. However, you have to occupy and remain an occupant of at least 51%.
Correct.
So while you can buy a building to house, let's say, your property management company, you cannot buy a building that your property management company is going to rent out
We'll and
purely as income.
right, and you'll have a small office in there.
Exactly.
Well, you can. We just can't do that type of funding.
Well, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Through
yes,
us.
absolutely.
So you need to know things like that, simply because all those little things really make the difference between, do you get the loan funded or do you not? Because if you're only occupying 49% of that building,
it's not gonna work.
we can't
We
do it,
can't
and
do
that's
it.
how we're regulated. That's not even really a policy thing, I don't think.
No.
That's just how
No,
we're.
if you get an SBA loan, SBA mandates
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
you have to
So-
have it, so you have to be cautious about that. Now, I know in our microloan programs, we've done some changes there,
Yes.
and we're not requiring a business plan. However, I still think that it's extremely important for every business owner to have one.
Absolutely. And what I always say is that if you can't make it work on paper, it's not going to work in reality.
Right.
Because on paper, you can have the most amazing customers who buy all your best stuff, who pay on time,
Who just
who
love
never
you.
bounce checks, who refer all of their friends. That's great. But you want a business plan because it's really about the where, what, when, why, and how of your business. What are you going to do? Where are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Who are you doing it for? And how are you going to make money? Because at the end of the day, if your business is not making money, you are going out of business or running a charity, one of the two.
I had a conversation
that's-
with someone on the phone today, and they're nervous about starting their own business, as I think most entrepreneurs are. And the way they were looking at it, they were going to be losing money from what they're doing currently.
Okay.
Once they quit their current job and go into their own business, they were going to be losing money. And I
Okay.
said, if you're going to be doing that temporarily while the business is growing,
Mhm.
then that can make sense. But if you're leaving a stable, good job
Yep.
to go into business, you need to know why you're doing that and if that really makes sense for you. Because the headaches that come from being an entrepreneur,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not worth it if you don't have the pot of gold at the end
Right.
that you're shooting for. If it's gonna afford you a certain lifestyle,
Yes.
maybe you want to be able to work your own schedule, and this is the only way you can do that. If that makes sense for you, that's fine. But a business plan will tell you if that's going to make sense, and that's why I think it's
Yeah.
so important.
And you really want to scrutinize your financials. So, for example, it's very easy to focus on the income, but we also have to look at the cost per sale. So, in other words,
Absolutely.
if you're going to sell a T-shirt for $10, how much does that T-shirt cost? And one show that I love is the Restaurant Impossible show.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that Robert Irvine does when he goes in, he says, "Okay, what's your top-selling dish? How much does that dish cost you?" And it'll be something like spaghetti and meatballs or whatever. And they'll sell it, let's say, for $6. But he'll price it out and find out that that dish is costing them $6.25.
Right.
So it's their number one seller, and every time they sell it, they're
They're losing
losing
money.
25 cents.
Right.
And 25 cents isn't a lot if you lose it once.
But if it's your
once
best
you're there.
seller and you're losing
Right.
it numerous
And,
times
you know,
a day,
Right, they're hemorrhaging money because that's the dish they promote, and it's costing they're charging people 25 cents less than it makes, so they're not making a negative margin on it.
exactly.
They're putting themselves out of business. They're putting themselves out of business with their number one bestseller
Well, and that
because they
kind of
didn't look at it on paper. And if they would have looked at it on paper, they would have said, "Oh, we need to charge at least $10
right.
to cover that and make some money and stay in business."
And a lot of that comes to what's your experience.
Right,
If my family tells me I'm a wonderful cook, that I should open up a restaurant,
which you are.
but I have thank you, but I have no idea how to price out a plate,
Right.
that can be a problem. And that's where a certain level of personal experience really needs to come into play there.
Absolutely.
A lot of times now, I may not have any experience, but say I go through FranNet and decide to get a franchise, they're going to do a massive amount
Right.
of training. They're going to be doing a lot of hand holding on the back end. So sometimes if you have a franchise, you can kind of get past that personal experience. But really, with the exception of a franchise, that's going to be hard
Yeah.
if you don't have any personal experience. So say I decide to open up a restaurant and I don't have any restaurant experience, but I'm going to hire Rob as my manager. Rob
Which you
has
should.
absolutely, if you have the experience.
Which I don't.
And if Rob had the experience, in that case, they would require us to make him an owner in the business too. You couldn't just say, "Well, I'm going to hire someone with the experience," because you can hire them and then they can turn around and quit, or you can fire them too.
Right.
So they
Absolutely.
need someone who again has some skin in the game. And now, if you're a 20% owner in the business, you're probably more than likely going to stay around and help the business continue to grow.
Yeah. And
So that level of experience becomes very important.
absolutely. And if you're using raw materials to make stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you really want to get it down to price per item that you make. So, for example, if you're a baker, you want to know how much does one chocolate chip cookie cost you to make. So you'll take the whole recipe and say, okay, from this recipe, this is what I'm putting in, this is how many cookies it makes, you divide it by the cookies, because you need to know if that cookie is costing you 40 cents, you can't charge 40 cents for that cookie.
Right,
You need to charge $1 for that cookie.
right.
By
Well,
the time because by the time your insurances and electricity and all of that are in there,
right,
that's what you have to do. Otherwise, it can be very easy to say, well, one bag of flour costs me, $1 and I can make 1,000 cookies with it. Well, by the time you put in everything, and some of them are going to burn, and some are going to fall on the floor, and some are going to break, and some are going to
right,
be shaped in a way that, people aren't going to buy. So you've got to figure out how much of that are you actually going to
is
throw
waste.
away.
Right, what is waste?
And you're going to waste. Even if it's a coffee place, you're going to spill stuff, and the wrong
Absolutely.
order's going to be made, and some coffee is going to sit too long and have to be dumped at the end of the day or whatever. So that's
Absolutely.
really important that you get your financials down to that level of granularity, because that's where a lot of businesses go wrong.
I was working with a restaurant and bar, and even on the bar, I mean, we had to know how much is it per half ounce on
Mhm.
some of the bottles that they were going to be having,
Right.
because that can make the difference between them being profitable and not profitable.
Well, if you're paying,
So,
let's say $30 for a bottle of vodka, and I don't know how many shots are in a bottle, let's say 20,
right,
you need to charge way more
then
than
what
a
the 20,
buck or $1.25 for a shot. You need to charge $3 or $4 for a shot,
right,
just to cover that bottle and make a little bit of a profit.
exactly. So knowing those numbers makes a tremendous
It
difference,
does.
and it's the difference generally between success and failure in a business.
Absolutely.
And most businesses, or they've done studies that businesses that go through technical assistance training through a women's business center has an 80% chance of success
Right.
versus somebody who doesn't. I tell you what, I would so take advantage of that, because our
Absolutely.
services to you through our women's business center are free of charge.
Free.
We want you to, yeah, exactly. We want you to take advantage of it. I always tell people that, at least 30% of our clients right now are men, so please don't
Yep.
be, scared off by the name Women's Business Center. We don't turn anybody away. What we want you to be is successful, and we want to work with you in every way we can in order to let you achieve that level of success.
Absolutely. So we've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay, so what are some of the documents that a client's going to need when they come in?
Okay, so if you meet the minimum FICO requirements for the microloans, if it's a loan under 2,500, our loans start at 500 and go up to 500,000. We should have mentioned that. All they're going to really ask for is a government issued ID and a business license.
That's it.
Now, if your debt to income ratio and all of that is really good, that's all you're going to need. If it's not, they're going to ask for more documentation. And that additional documentation, and that's if you're going for loans a little bit higher, you're still going to need your photo ID, you're still going to need a copy of your business license, then you're going to need your most recent 3 months of bank statements, personal and business if you've been in business, your last filed tax returns, personal and business if you were in business long enough to have been able to file taxes. And I'm trying to think I think that's
Business
it.
license, bank statements, tax
That's what
returns.
it says. Yeah, I've got all those. Yeah, so that's really about it. Now, if you don't meet the income requirements and all of that, or the credit score, then we might ask for more information like year-to-date P&Ls. We may ask
Paycheck
for cash
stubs,
flow
things
statements,
like that. Right.
paycheck stubs, that type of information. So again, it's really good to have the conversation before you need the money. What do you need? And also one thing to keep in mind too, we're not emergency lenders.
Right.
So if you're way behind in bills and you're about to be evicted and creditors are calling on your business, we can't help you. Our loans need to be an investment
Right.
to start or grow your business, not to put out a fire. Now, the exception to that is people that have gotten themselves into a bad loan, like the one we talked about earlier. We were able to refinance them out of that, but only because we could show the difference they would pay between our loan and that loan would free up over $10,000 a month for them.
Right.
And that's the only reason. And they thought they were doing the right thing by taking that loan. It wasn't a frivolous decision, because we
Right.
talked to the manager and the owners. They really looked at it. They thought they were doing the right thing,
Right.
but they weren't. In that case, yes, we can help somebody out of a sticky situation, but usually
Right.
that's just not gonna happen. That's a very rare exception that we would do really something to bail somebody out of a big problem like that.
Exactly. So if a client.
But that took us 3 months to get that worked out.
Right.
So again, we weren't able to do that in a couple days or a week. That was a 3-month back and
Right.
forth, really figuring this out process.
One thing that I think everyone needs to be really aware of as far as licensing for your business, if you go down to the licensing department, they're not gonna say, oh, you have a daycare center, so you need X, Y, and Z.
Right.
That's not their job to do that. Their job is to
Get you the business license.
get you the business license, of which you tell them what you need.
Right.
So it is on you to do your research, to find that out. If you don't know who can help you with that, call
Call
us.
Call us.
You know, I mean, if we don't have the answers, we have a plethora of people that we can
Yep.
call and get that information for you. But you wanna make sure that you're getting the right license, that you're
Yep.
getting everything that you do need, so that they're not coming back and all of a sudden you're gonna get shut down because you didn't have the right license.
And
it happens.
And know what they cost and how long they take. I mean, I was surprised. So, a liquor license in Nevada, 75, or at least in Las Vegas, $75,000.
Mm-hmm. And a liquor
That's
license
huge.
cannot be sold with a business. It's not transferable.
And doesn't it take like months to actually
Yes.
get?
Yes,
And then if you're gonna have gaming, there's another few months to
Right.
get that.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you just need to know, you need to know your business, understand your business so that you can be asking the correct questions.
Yep.
All
absolutely. So we're pretty much out of time. Do
right.
you want to give out our phone number and how people can contact us?
Absolutely. You can give us a call at 702-734-3555. You can ask for either Rob or myself. Please feel free to check out our website, nevadawbc.com. You'll see all of our training classes coming up. Thank you so much for being on this
Thank you.
webinar. We hope that you found some value of it, and we look forward to working with you. Best of luck in your business.
Thanks.